It was one thing when the Bush administration was accused of torturing detainees from other countries. Now, tonight, another case of it having tortured detainees from this country. Next on Countdown. It is the second court case alleging that Donald Rumsfeld authorized the torture of American citizens. In our third story tonight, we'll hear from one of the two men now suing George W. Bush's Secretary of Defense, Donald Vance, a U.S. Navy veteran, former defense contractor, who says he was held and tortured in an American-run prison in Iraq for nearly 100 days after he alerted the FBI about illegal weapons trading involving U.S. military personnel. Mr. Vance is expecting a ruling on his case from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, possibly within weeks. The next step would likely be the Supreme Court. His case could set the precedent for other cases against Rumsfeld, including one now going forward in Washington. Vance was sent to Iraq as a contractor in 2004. While he was there, he says, he saw employees at his Iraq-based company building a stash of weapons to sell to Iraqi officials, some with ties to violent militias. There were even employees giving American soldiers liquor in exchange for bullets and weapon repairs. Vance returned to Chicago and made the decision to tell the FBI what he had seen. The agency asked him to become an informant and sent him back to work undercover. But while he was there, he learned his cover had been blown and he was at risk of being kidnapped. The U.S. Special Forces team rescued him and brought him to local State Department officials. The only problem, he says some of their employees were the very people he had been informing the FBI about. That's when things suddenly got much worse. He says he was awakened in the middle of the night, handcuffed, blindfolded, and driven to Camp Cropper. Camp Cropper, where he endured what the military calls enhanced interrogation, sleep deprivation, days without food or water, and day-long sessions of fierce questioning. Then 97 days into that stay there, he says, it suddenly ended as suddenly as it had started. A guard came to his cell with a passport and a plane ticket to Amman, Jordan. Guards drove him to the Baghdad airport, dropped him outside, and 48 hours later, he was back home in Chicago. 7 months after that, he filed suit against Donald Rumsfeld. Joining me now from Chicago, Don Vance, the Navy veteran who worked as a contractor in Iraq and was detained and allegedly tortured at Camp Cropper. Thanks very much for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
It seems hard to believe that Donald Rumsfeld actually would have had to sign off on your torture. Explain why you've reached that conclusion.
Well, we come to that conclusion because of the sheer facts. The public record makes it very, very clear. And, of course, now we know that Rumsfeld was, in fact, intimately involved in our country's torture programs all over the world.
How... I'm sure you ask yourself this question every minute, perhaps, of those 97 days. Do you have any explanation as to how a U.S. citizen could wind up at Camp Cropper down the hallway, metaphorically speaking, from Chemical Ali and Al-Qaeda operatives?
We have absolutely no answers. It's been several years now since my return home. To this very day, we have no answers how we got to that point.
Are you assuming that they essentially stashed you there because the people that you were in fact turning on and informing on had in some way set you up, or was it serendipity that you were handed over to them, or was this the plan all along?
Well, I think that I was originally detained because they, one, needed to find out what I had, in fact, been informing the FBI about. You got to remember the people that had the decision-making powers to detain me. I'm reporting on their subordinates.
You said that the government has tried to settle with you, essentially tried to pay you to keep quiet. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, my case and John Doe's case has nothing to do with money. We have had settlement conferences in the past, and in every single instance, we've come to no agreement whatsoever. We are going forward to court. I have no interest in having any settlement conferences. We know of, 3 cases going forward against Rumsfeld that involve Americans. Is that correct? That we know of. Yeah. Something tells me that there could quite possibly be other Americans who just haven't come forward yet. Yeah, that was my question. I mean, there's nothing that you actually saw at that camp that suggested that there were other American citizens there, was there? I do have a personal belief that there were other Americans being held at Camp Cropper, yes. Can you give me any of the details of why you believe that? The guards... talk amongst themselves. They're used to interacting with Iraqis who don't necessarily speak English and have a very rudimentary understanding of English. Myself and other Americans were able to understand directly what the guards are saying to each other. And you would hear some things that were pretty frightening.
I don't want to kick in PTSD or anything else here, but what can you tell me about what they did to you?
I've endured the entire program, as I like to call it, the program, the enhanced interrogation, the authorized enhanced interrogation program. It extends from what they would call food manipulation, which is basically we're not going to feed you for several days, no water, no medical attention, sleep deprivation, sensory overload, walling.
Walling. Explain walling.
Walling is the practice where they stand you up against a wall and basically just slam you into a wall repeatedly.
Are we talking also about waterboarding?
I never faced that threat. I was never waterboarded. I can't speak of if that technique is used in Camp Cropper, but we do know the public record makes it clear that Rumsfeld gave clear instructions to, quote, Gitmotize Camp Cropper. He wanted Camp Cropper to be the Gitmo of Iraq.
All right, having gone through that, even without the sort of the last level of hell, the waterboarding, the basic premise when you leave out the ethics of not torturing, not enhanced interrogating people, is that you will get false confessions. Could you imagine that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I can definitely imagine that. I can certainly imagine someone admitting to incredible crimes, maybe for a sandwich.
Given that following your narrative, given that you wound up in that place for essentially doing the right thing, for telling on people who were doing the wrong thing in the name of this government and this nation, how did you summon within you the wherewithal, the fortitude to say, okay, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to put myself at risk for what's right again?
Meaning my lawsuit?
Yeah, because a lot of people would just take the money and run.
Anger.
Yeah.
Incredible amounts of anger, wanting to know why this happened. Why did it happen to me? Who authorized it? How does this program work? I don't really have the vocabulary to explain what I feel.
Anger seems to be a pretty good piece of vocabulary. Last question.
Yes.
Why did you make that decision to become the FBI informant in the first place in this case?
When you're growing up as a kid, your parents and Joe Friendly officer who comes in the classroom, they always tell you, when you see something wrong, you're supposed to tell Mr. Policeman, and I thought that's what I was doing. I came home and I approached my my local FBI office, and I spoke to an agent about what I was seeing, what I was experiencing, what I was had access to. And right away they gained a tremendous amount of interest and said, we need you. We need you to help us.
Well,
and I said yes.
Here it is. This is a nation saying we need you to help us now. And I'm glad that you still have within you whatever it takes, whether it's anger or patriotism or a combination thereof, to pursue this. Best of luck with the lawsuit. Don Vance, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Sean Hannity doesn't want to pay for your birth control, but he wants you to pay for his Viagra. Worst persons is ahead on Countdown.